Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another great episode of Project Transitions Transition Points. I'm, as you know, Brandon Martinez, and I'm here with our Vice President of Clinical and Programming, Dr. Stacey Dixon. How's it going, Dr. Dixon?
Hi, doing great this morning.
How's the weather out in Tennessee?
We are looking forward to some snow this week.
No,
Starting today. Won't stick, but at least it'll be pretty.
I can't imagine what Tennessee is like in the snow. I've seen videos of like people from the South and in Texas when it snows. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
we're used to it here in Gatlinburg. It snows quite a bit throughout the year, so we're good.
so. Where is Gatlinburg, regionally in Tennessee?
Yeah, we're on the east and the southeast part of the state. Tennessee is a really long state, so when we talk about our programs in Tennessee, stretching from Memphis all the way up to we have staff in, I think, Johnson City. That's like a 7 to 8 hour drive from point to
Woo!
point. I know.
Wow.
Yeah, we're actually, I'm closer to our Wilmington, North Carolina office than I am to our Memphis, Tennessee.
That is insane to me.
Yeah.
My dad lived in Tennessee a little bit growing up, and he said I used to wake up, take a shower, go to bed, and then it'd be like I took a shower all over again when I woke up the next morning because it got so hot with the humidity level.
Oh yeah, especially if you are in the Memphis part of the state, it's pretty hot and muggy.
So you've been with Project Transition for about 6, 7 months now, right?
Correct.
How does it how
Thank
you
you.
how does it feel so far?
I absolutely love it. And I was talking with, we have a wonderful consultant, Les Postnikoff, who's helping our leadership team at Project Transition. He was asking me last week how I was doing and how I like the job. And I kind of surprised myself. It just popped out that this is my favorite job.
Wow.
I am not a spring chicken. I'm 59 years old, and this is the best job I've ever worked at. I came into this company that I chose. I hopped from a major MCO to this job because of what it is Project Transition stands for and what we do here, which is bring hope and healing to the community. And we also don't give up on people. We bring them in and we love them up, and we really help walk people through their path in life to transition on to more independent living. Um, but it was an exciting thing to do to come
It's a
here.
very gratifying job.
It is, and I have the best team. I'm just gonna say I've throughout my career, I've come to most organizations to either develop and build new programs or to fix programs that are in pretty dire straits. And in this program, I came in and I had this wonderful team that I inherited. And I'm so lucky that, yes, we've done some real changes, but I had the strongest crew I've ever had, all performing very well in order to get our jobs done. So makes me happy.
That's phenomenally to hear.
Yeah.
But you've been with Project Transition in like in other aspects too, right? So you helped with the
Mhm.
creation of systems of support.
Yes, in Tennessee, I was working for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee's Medicaid division, which is called Blue Care.
Mhm.
And back in 2015, TennCare, which is the HICFA authority in Tennessee, asked, they put out a request for proposal for this new idea of a system of support for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities who also have severe behavioral health conditions and that land them in kind of repetitive crisis mode where they're in and out of jails and hospitals and living on the street. And so Project Transition was the last provider standing after the RFP. And so my job when I came into Blue Care as the behavior support director for the state was to make SOS work.
Mhm.
So there are three MCOs in Tennessee, and we all partnered differently with Project Transition. But uh, I came in telling the program director at the time, I said, we've got to make it work. We're going to do whatever it takes, and we're going to make it work.
Wow.
And we did. We collaborated very closely, and have served several hundred people through SOS since that time.
You spoke it into reality.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a believer of, you say it, you plot the way, you show everybody, and then you get there. So that's what we did.
Have you always had an affinity for helping people in the IDD community?
Yes and no. So I kind of have two favorite things to do, and I just happen to straddle both of them. I really love working with people with severe and persistent mental illness. And I also love working with people who learn differently, who are on the autistic spectrum, who just, need a different approach in life. They may not learn the same or the same rate as you and I, but they have all the same dreams and aspirations and rights. And we need to make sure that, we are doing our best to communicate and to support them.
So when I first came home from the military, before I started college, I was working at an organization where I was called a direct support professional. Here
Yes.
we call it like an RA, but I was at the residential aspect, where I was at their house, and it was like a house, and they had three, we called them consumers living there. And they were all, I'd say late 30s, and the oldest was, he has since passed away, but 65, and they were part of our program. And so what I would do is, me and my partner, like working partner, would go, and then we just literally help them with the everyday aspects of their life, whether it be helping them, like we'd shower them, cook for them, help them meet their goals, bring them out into the community, do different events with them. And one of them was nonverbal, right? And he was pretty high up on the autism spectrum, but he was an amazing thinker, right? And you would never know, you would never think about it until you actually sat down with him, and he would write things out for you. And like, mind you, you had to like make it make sense, but just to see it was amazing. And to this day, it's like, because of that work experience, I always have a heart for people in the IDD community.
Right, right. Me as well. And that's something that Project Transition, we have plans to expand even more into that work, because what I've learned over my career is that you have people that tend to specialize in behavioral health and people that specialize in supporting the IDD community. And they have developed into very different streams. And it's as if you have a developmental disability, all of a sudden now you need something completely different for behavioral health than somebody with an IQ that might be a few points higher than you. And it just, it's arbitrary. It doesn't make sense. And so it's up to people like me that have had the benefit of working in both of those streams to bring those streams togetmer.
We have a voice, so we have to use it, right?
Right.
Let's take it back, like back in time, right? Back to the future. Tell me a little bit what it was like for you growing up.
Yeah. So I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And a little bit about myself. I'm the adopted middle child
Wow.
of a family of short, loud, boisterous, social people. And I am tall, quiet, love music and art. It was just like, one of these things is not like the other. In all of our pictures, it's like, can you point out the person who might have been adopted? And that was me. So I really kind of made my way in the world, not knowing anything about my biological family, which in a way was a real gift. Besides being adopted, was
Mhm.
a huge gift to me. But uh, as I had to learn my way in the world, I didn't look to my adoptive parents because they were so different than me, and it just made me decide I'm gonna do what seems right for me. Um, add on top of that a good, healthy pinch of rebellion on my part. So I ended up going to Oklahoma State University.
Wow.
Listen to this. So I started off with a business degree because everybody in my circle did, which, not the best fit for me. So I changed my major, I think, 3 times before I graduated from undergraduate.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. The trajectory through life, people, it's not always clean. So I decided I wanted to be a teacher, and I went all the way through
Teacher.
education up till the student teaching part. And then I'm going to harken back to that rebellious nature in me. And I decided that really the school system wasn't doing a great job of educating people. And so I didn't want to become a part of that.
Mm.
And I had a professor who decided that I needed to be in psychology. And she kind of roped me in there, got me in the graduate program like overnight. It was really pretty funny. And then I stuck with it and loved it because I loved the idea of applying what I knew to children at first and their families. And then I broadened that in my internship and my fellowship into developmental disabilities as well. So um, I've seen and been trained for kind of the whole human experience.
Wow. I
Mhm.
so you went from business to teaching to
Mhm.
psychology. And just to see that trajectory, like you were saying, it's like, um, I mean, I can't imagine starting out as business and then ending up as psychology, you know. Even so I went to Drexel University, um,
Mhm.
and so I was part of the LeBeau School of Business. And there's just a very clear difference between like who is going to like that specific, because everything's broken down
Right.
into individual colleges within,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and there's just a clear difference, and like I can't even imagine what that would have been like for you, especially back
Well,
then.
you also have to put it in the context of going to an ag school in the middle of Oklahoma.
Okay.
And
Okay, yeah, yeah.
I was different. Let me just tell you. I've always joked. It's not even a joke. I think I'm a hair shy off the autistic spectrum. So I was always the unusual one. And into punk rock music and like from 1980 on.
I think we just became best friends, Dr. Dixon.
Yeah.
Punk
I've had
rock
my
is
hair a few
punk
different
rock is my
shades.
peak. Yes,
Is it? Okay.
yes.
So that rebel spirit, I think, has continued to flow. Most people looking at me would never guess, but I do have this question authority, and you know, eh, there's always got to be a better way. And I'm
Absolutely.
fine with change, which is really pretty unusual. I've learned. For me, it just feels pretty natural that if there's a better way, let's go towards it. And if we find the better way 5 years down the road from that, that's great. But we owe it to the people that we support and serve to be constantly looking for the better way.
Absolutely. You know, I'm trying to imagine you at a punk rock show in the 80s, and like I would have loved to see
Do
that.
it.
That's crazy.
Unfortunately, and just it's really puzzling why my parents didn't take a lot of pictures of me during those years.
Who would have thought, right?
Right.
So, after your graduate school, did you work many different jobs in the psychology field before ending up to where you are?
Um, yeah, so the way that went, let me retrace. I was an assistant professor at the University of Tennessee psychiatry in Memphis for a couple of years, working at the Bowling Center for Developmental Disabilities. I onboarded new interns and supervised them for a while. I went to work for a local mental health center after that, where I operated one of their satellite offices in a rural county. Loved it. I absolutely love working with um, people in rural places because again, often very open to the help, believe it or not. We think sometimes differently, but what I've learned is people in rural spaces are so grateful to have anybody
Mhm.
attending to them, and caring about their needs and their life and the way they live their lives, that I just loved it. It felt like a true collaboration when I did therapy and assessments and things like that
Wow.
with that community. And then I became a director of psychology and a director of treatment planning at Memphis Mental Health Institute for several years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and let me see, where did I go from that? Oh, then I did go into the home and community-based services world for IDD. So just like you were talking about people living in their own homes, sharing homes with roommates and having staff come in and work with them, that became my work over the next 20 years. And then I moved from Memphis to Nashville at one point. I'd been a regional director in the home and community-based services field, and then I actually became the chief officer. It's like the CEO at one of our developmental centers, which is Clover Bottom Developmental Center and the Harold Jordan Center. And at that time, my job was to close down the developmental center and move the remaining people there into the community. And
Wow.
so spent several years doing that. And the Harold Jordan Center was on that campus, and it remained open. And I was tasked with finding a way to repurpose it. It had been a forensics only unit.
Mm.
It was a 36 bed facility, had the whole Sally port and everything that you had to drive through because they're bringing people in from jail with IDD who are not guilty by reason of insanity or who have yet to be trained to competency, and we're still working on that. So I divided that building into three parts and developed an intermediate care facility
Wow.
for people with IDD and specialized behavioral health concerns. On one part of it, kept a forensic unit and added what we called a BSU, a behavior stabilization unit, for people with very severe um, behaviors that weren't able to maintain in the community. And they really didn't belong in a hospital because hospitals don't tend to make people better when they have behavioral health conditions with
Mhm.
IDD. So I left that place and went on to work 2 years in the senior care setting. So people in nursing facilities, and did assessments and therapy and treatment planning for people in nursing facilities. Absolutely love that work. Never thought I would, but that was some of the most satisfying work that I had done to date. Then I went to Blue Care and worked there for about 6 years as their director of behavioral health for people with IDD. And
So
then I came here.
you had mentioned that's a lot. Like literally a lot. So you had mentioned that you were closing down a program for those members to integrate into the community. I'm a
Yes.
huge fan of integration into the community and
Oh,
proposal.
yeah.
I think more organizations should have that as an end goal. If there's
Absolutely.
organizations like that, that the main goal is just to bring in people, okay, right? But you should be able to get to the point where you don't want your organization around anymore because
Mhm.
it's better for them to be in the community.
Right. Right. And again, bringing it back to project transition, one of the things I learned at Blue Care was there wasn't a place for a lot of people to go.
Yeah.
So you leave a hospital and you don't necessarily just have this right place.
Mhm.
Even if you have places that will accept you, they may not be right for you and your needs. So at Project Transition, I love the fact that we as a company are always looking for a way to meet the needs of the member
Absolutely.
and help them live as independently as possible in the future.
Over the right before Christmas, I did a few shifts at the RTFA.
Yes.
As you know, things were a little bumpy there for a while in regards to like staff.
Mhm.
So I offered to help out for a few shifts. Um, and that was an amazing experience.
I bet.
I haven't done shift work like that since like direct support when I was doing direct support before college. But just to hear they all have like legitimate like end goals of where they want to be. I'm thinking of one member in particular. I had an amazing conversation with her, and it's like we are really doing something to help these people.
Right.
Where would they be without us? And I'm not
Right.
trying to toot our own horn, but like,
I am.
yeah,
I am, and again for a reason, because I worked with project transition on the other side, on the MCO side, for 6 years, so I can honestly say that there isn't something like us.
no,
And when I talk to staff who are like, "Oh, I don't know if we can meet this person's needs," um, my first question is always, "If we don't, then who does?"
yeah,
Because literally, there isn't anyone like us.
absolutely. And I'm so grateful for us to be around. Even if we can't help them, as long as they want us to, as long as we help them, as long as we can, that's all that
Right,
matters, right?
right.
As long as we leave our imprint on them somehow, I know that they're gonna leave with some sort of success. So you're a doctor. What is your research focused in?
I don't do research anymore. I have in the past.
Okay.
Probably the last interesting thing that I did, it wasn't, true research, but it was a look back when I was leaving Blue Care at our SOS program, and looking at claims data for the positive effect that SOS, which is think of it as care coordination for people with
Mhm.
IDD and behavioral health conditions with crisis behavior, where we go in and we assess why they keep going in and out of these crises, develop an individualized crisis plan for them that involves all the systems in their community, um, and works to resolve any of those issues and build up the system of support around the person so they can help that person stay out of crisis in the long run. So it sounds wonderful. We were seeing all the anecdotal stuff that it was wonderful, and I thought, what is this doing to the bottom line?
Mm.
So I did a 5-year look back on claims data with people in SOS, and all those high levels of care, hospitals, ED visits, going to residential treatment, things like that, anything that's beyond the regular outpatient service. And I took 1 year of that kind of data prior to the person coming into SOS, during SOS, and then 5 years post grad, and on 100 members that were spending over $10,000 a year in high cost services. By the end of the 5th year out, they were down to 90 to 100% reduction of high level of care costs. So that meant people were not going in the hospital. People were not going in and out of the ED like they were. So even though that's a dollar amount, it's amazing reduction, like 71% in the first year
Mhm.
reduction of high level of care costs. And that's like a wow factor for an MCO. Yay, we're saving money. We saved about $11 million on those 100 people over the course of 5 years. Um, but to me, that says, where were those people? They weren't in a hospital. They weren't, and these were still Blue Care members, so they weren't in jail. We knew where they're in the community living a life. And that's just an amazing thing to me that we were able to show such a huge reduction in cost.
I'm just becoming a huge fan of you. So, um, just to take an analytical approach like that, that's not an easy
Mhm.
thing to do. So,
Mhm.
huge props and respect to you on that one. I just have a few more questions, if that's okay with
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
What, so obviously we are in the digital age, right? Everything is done online through social media. People
Mhm.
share things that probably they shouldn't share, but that just comes with the territory, right? Everything comes with likes, clicks, and views. One big thing that's going on in the media right now is mental health, right? It's almost as if mental health has become a mainstream thing, almost to the point
Right.
where words are being used out of context and people are self-diagnosing when they really
Oh yeah.
should. What is your opinion on the mainstream effect of mental health?
Well, like with just about anything information wise, it can be used for good or for ill. And so it's wonderful that people have all this information to validate the fact that we all have brains and that we all, that our brains function differently from one another, and we have peak brain performance and not peak brain performance. So I'm glad people are starting to have more empathy towards their fellow man because of that.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's great that people who may be in situations where they don't have access to, face-to-face care information, at least have ways to find out they're not alone, and can possibly seek help online. On the flip end of that, you kind of alluded to, people use the word triggers a lot, and triggers, um, the intent of that word is to discuss trauma that's happened to a person in their lives, and things that help or make them relive that trauma, and how they can either avoid or at least buffer some of their response to the trigger. But now it seems like people use that word as anything that makes them upset. And
I'm triggered, yeah.
yeah, oh, I'm so triggered. Yeah, that is not at all the experience that a
Yes.
person with, a trauma history has when they are triggered. So we don't control the language that people use, but that is one of those things that I think is being over utilized in mainstream.
As long as we are self-aware of it and we can use that
Mhm.
self-awareness to encourage others not to do such acts, I think that's really important.
Right.
But your answer was very educated and diplomatic, so I respect that 100%. So Dr. Dixon, so I learned that you are a huge punk rock fan. What is your favorite punk band?
X from California. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's how
Yeah.
you know you're a real punk fan.
That's right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And on another note, I think the most punk rock thing about you is that you have a black belt in Taekwondo.
Yes, that I received when I was 40 years old. Uh,
Wow. How long did it take you to get that?
what was a couple years to get it, but it's just like it's funny, and I laugh about it because if you know me at all, I'm a humongous klutz with a lot of balance, and just, I'm not the greatest physical specimen, but I can, but if I need to protect myself. So when I'm working with people in therapy, I use this with some of our members in Nashville just recently, and they're like, I had to hit him in self-defense. And I'm like, look, dude, my Taekwondo instructor had like a 6-degree black belt, and he started every self-defense class with, what's the best way to protect yourself from aggression? And it's run. And he said, what's the second best way? Run. What's the third best way? Run. And this is somebody who could seriously wipe out everybody in this room, in 30 seconds. So if they're saying don't fight, because it's way more dangerous to fight, uh, that teaches us something. So the back shuffle away from danger is one of the best techniques you can ever learn.
You are the most punk rock vice president of clinical and programming I've ever met in my entire life. And that is so epic. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And we would love to have you on again. I know Steph couldn't make it today, but for next time, I'd love to have the three of us on. I think it'll be a
Fantastic.
fantastic thing. So I want to thank you again so much. And do you have any last words?
Be kind. Just everyone, be kind to each other. We all deserve it.
Thank you so much. And I'll talk to you next time. All right.
All right,
Bye,
Dave.
guys.